Good evening, everyone. Mike's MMA Picks here, checking in with you on this Sunday evening. Wanted to take a quick look back at UFC Vegas 23, also known as UFC on ABC 2, where we saw Marvin Vettori handily dispose of Kevin Holland. Very impressive performance by Marvin Vettori, who set a new middleweight record for takedowns. So let's take a little look here, deeper look at how this card played out. And first fight of the evening, we saw Kasanganai lock in that rear naked choke against Sasha Palatnikov. Impressive return for Kasanganai, who had to shake off that Buckley knockout. Very impressed with the composure shown by Kasanganai yesterday. He went to his grappling. You watch his previous fights, he did have 2 submission victories on his record. Now you can make that 3. And folks cashed on that inside the distance Kasanganai ticket at plus 240. Impressive. Impressive performance by Kasanganai. I'd like to see where he ends up the rest of the year. I suspect now that he's down at Sanford MMA, we'll see Impa Kasanganai back in action again in 2021. I'd like to hear from you guys. Who do you think would be a good matchup, a good opponent for Kasanganai moving forward? Next up, let's head to that second fight of the night, where we saw Jung really expose William Knight. Takedowns galore. That trip was there all day for Jung. Not many folks expected this fight to turn into a grappling fest, but Jung had the upper hand for all 3 rounds. And you watch William Knight out there, he looked slow as molasses. Everything he did, he's gotten by for so long on brute strengths. Very similar to Derek Lewis's success, except we haven't seen Knight brutally knock out many opponents, at least not as many as Derek Lewis. So where does William Knight go from here? That's a question I have for folks. And then on the other side of the fight, Jung, who struggled against Sam Alvey. That fight was much closer than it needed to be. Jung could have and should have taken out Sam Alvey, similar to how we saw Marquez get that job done. Let's continue on here, my friends. Third fight of the night, where we had Luis Saldana. Controversial decision. What do you say, folks? That Jordan Griffin defeat. I misspoke there. Jordan Griffin, I thought he did enough in that spot. Not many punches landed, but as far as grappling goes, he had Luis Saldana had that neck wrapped up a few times, could not finish the choke. And really, Luis Saldana, that fight-ready camp out in Arizona, got him set up for an early sharp outing. Though as the fight progressed, the wheels began to fall off. And you had Saldana, who really, he got lucky to walk out with a victory in that spot. Not sure what the what the UFC is going to end up doing with Jordan Griffin. He might receive his pink slip after that fight. We will see. And then Saldana, I don't even know where he goes from here on out. He did not look great. Lots of unforced errors on his part during the fight. Now, let's move up and down this card here. We've got Jack Shore, who took on Hunter Azure. First, let's crack open a little Modelo Especial here as we run back UFC on ABC2. Excellent. Excellent. We've got Jack Shore, who came in looking to wrestle against Hunter Azure, and very surprised to see the level of success he had in that fight. I picked Jack Shore to win. By the way, our picks on the morning breakdown show at MMA Oddsbreaker ended up going 9 for 13. Jack Shore had a lot of success in the wrestling department and was one step ahead of Azure the entire fight. Impressive performance. Cardio checked out. Grappling checked out. Fight IQ checked out. We knew some of this coming into the fight, but the UK wrestling scene, tough to trust. Proved a point last night, though. Very impressive by Jack Shore. Now, that 135-pound division is stacked. So I'd like to know, who would you like to see Jack Shore take on his next bout? 135-pounders. Ooh, man. Who can we give him? How about an Asunsao? Lots of choices out there. Next up, let's keep running through this card quick. Next up, we had a major upset in the making where we had Jano defeat Yorgan de Castro. One punch sent de Castro on his back, and the show was ended relatively quickly. Yorgan de Castro, who is a plus 550 underdog against Meeks on the Contender Series. Man, his stock has fallen and dramatically over the past few fights. The Carlos Felipe fight and now this. Tough scene out there for Yorgan de Castro. Hopefully he can right that ship. But Dann coming out after a number of years away from the fight game, putting on an impressive performance. Now, is Dann gonna end up back with us in 2025? Is that his next slated return? I'm curious. Interesting spot here. Then we have another fight. Mackenzie against Bahamondes. Wow. This should not have been a split decision. Oh, hey, Marcus. Yes, I agree. De Castro has been a big disappointment. Let a lot of folks down. Heavyweights, man. Heavyweights will be heavyweights. It's disturbing when you see that one punch can really change the complexion of a fight. And we saw that firsthand last night. De Castro wasn't even able to get going. So getting back to Mackenzie, came out sharp. Ignacio was looking to use his length, came in overweight, and ran into a bit of a buzzsaw, which was unsuspecting for Mackenzie. Usually hits and runs, but he didn't do that last night. He was able to work his magic in there and cut Bahamondes open, get ahead to an early lead, had Bahamondes looking like a giraffe out there on roller skates at times. Very surprised to see this be called a split decision. I did not think Bahamondes was in that fight until, he had his moments, but Makdessi put a stamp on it. And Bahamondes, I don't think he's UFC caliber. I mean, you look at he takes an L to John Makdessi at this stage. He's got a lot of work to do. Makdessi, stock rises slightly. Where he ends up, good question. Good question. He was hanging on by a thread. Now he's still in the UFC. Let's see. But we've seen fighters cut on victories before. Next up, we had Matthias Gamrot knocking out Scott Holtzman. I had that fight going the distance and Gamrot winning it, though Gamrot ended up laying the lumber on Scott Holtzman. Very impressive performance. The wrestling was there. You see Holtzman was ready to try to land that uppercut every time Gamrot tried to come in and shoot. Holtzman wasn't able to have any success with that. And what can you say? Gamrot rolls here, puts up a significant DraftKings score with 107.5 points. And Scott Holtzman, 37 years of age, career maybe coming to a close after back-to-back knockout losses. We'll see. He's a consummate professional. Scott Holtzman, he's a grinder. That win over Jim Miller 2020 was something to write home about, but did not look good out there. Looked slow. And Gamrot, man, that fight against Kuram really lit a fire under his ass. And I liked what I saw out of Gamrot. Fighting out of ATT, looking sharp. Be interested who he ends up locking horns with next time out. The lightweight division is also stacked out there. Now, next up, we had the Battle of New Jersey, where we had Joe Salecki taking on Jim Miller. This was this fight got very interesting when Joe Salecki pulled guard in that first round. I did not expect Salecki to end up on his back for almost 2.5, 3 minutes there at the end of the round. Get-up game was not in effect, but then we saw the second round. Salecki was able to land that takedown and really slow cook Jim Miller out there, and that's a tough thing to do. I know Pichel had some success doing that, and Scott Holtzman did as well, but Jim Miller was really stuck down there on his back and didn't really pose a submission threat throughout the fight. You had Miller trying to lock in a Kimura at times, but was unable to get things going. And Salecki, the younger, stronger, fresher fighter, Miller limped out of the octagon. I think his career might be coming to a close. I'm surprised. Was anybody out there surprised that that Miller didn't leave his gloves inside of the octagon? I thought Jim Miller was going to retire in that spot, but he may fight on. 37 appearances inside of the octagon. So Joe Salecki. Where does Joe Salecki go from here? Cerebral fighter. Fought the smart game plan. Next up, we had Daniel Rodriguez, who defeated Mike Perry, and that was impressive against a Mike Perry who looked to be in the best shape of his life, looked to have his head screwed on right, spent the entire camp at MMA Masters and attempted to get his wrestling going. Had some success with that early, but Daniel Rodriguez was pumping that jab that nose of Mike Perry is shot, and we saw he's not the same fighter, especially since the Luque fight. That nose got busted up big time, and Daniel Rodriguez was able to get his kicking game going. Mike Perry's striking defense was really, man, there's a lot to be desired there. It's never really been developed. His striking defense is his toughness, waging through the fire so many times. I'm surprised we haven't seen him brutally knocked out. I know Jeff Neal was able to have a lot of success against him, and Rodriguez got the job done. Impressive performance by Daniel Rodriguez. Did not run out of gas in that spot and came through. Then we had Mackenzie Dern taking on Nina Ansaroff / Nunes. Mackenzie Dern cut through Nina Nunes like a warm knife through butter. I was not expecting it to be that easy for Mackenzie Dern. She made it look easy out there. I thought that Nunes would hang in this fight. And one thing I asked a lot of folks out there, I never saw a response that that calculated the numbers, but what is the record of the win-loss record of female UFC fighters who have competed within 1 year of giving birth? Interested. If anybody has that number, I'd be interested in hearing it. Oh, we've got another comment here from Mr. Marcus Williams. If you were managing Mike Perry, what would you advise him to do next to get his career back on a winning streak? I'll be honest. I think at this stage in his career, sending him packing to Bellator would probably be the best option for him, where he could potentially face, he could face some cans over there and put fannies in the seats. Now that COVID is on the decline and we have folks entering arenas, I think we'll see Mike Perry have a successful career in another promotion, but he still has to stay out of trouble and keep things rolling. Mackenzie Dern, very impressive. Looked like she had put in a solid camp. And I really liked what I saw out of Mackenzie Dern in that spot. The armbar. And Nina Nunes, now 34 years of age. Time away. Looked like a different fighter, to be honest. I mean, I know physically she was in shape, but I don't like seeing fighters getting torched like that coming off of having a baby. It's tough. Leslie Smith, I believe it happened to as well. Gotta check that out. Mackenzie Dern lost her first fight back against Amanda Ribas. So just scope that out and get back to me. Next up, we had Julian Marquez, who was able to dispose of Smiling Sam Alvey. Smiling was not smiling after that one. Alvey lost via submission. Rear naked choke, was put to sleep out there. I picked Marquez to win, but I did not think it was going to come that easy in the second round. Dropped Sam Alvey multiple times, swarmed him, and then locked in that choke. And that was a night. Impressive performance from our friend Julian Marquez, who ended up putting up 105 DraftKings points. Impressive there. Then we get to what I consider to be the people's main event, where we had Arnold Allen defeating Sadiq Youssef via unanimous decision. This fight we could have seen this fight end after that head kick in the second round. I thought that fight was going to be over, but it was not. We had Sadiq Yusuff hang in there and take the L to Arnold Allen, who was sharp, stayed out of trouble. Arnold Allen is he's so sharp when he's out there with that jab and his movement that he does not put himself in harm's way often. And he recognizes when he's running out of gas. Keeps himself out of trouble. He has a grappling pedigree. This is a guy who hasn't lost a fight since 2014. And he took on a very tall task in Sadiq Yusuff and came out looking, he came out of that fight unscathed, really. I was very impressed with Arnold Allen's performance yesterday. I think that the arrow continues to be pointed up. I would have liked to have seen if he was matched up against Jeremy Stevens. I believe that was a fight that was in play. You look back on his Mads Burnell fight, very impressive victory now looking back on it. We've cashed on Arnold Allen in the past against Nick Lentz and Gil Melendez, etc. But this fight was a very closely lined fight for a reason, and we saw Arnold Allen really show out. I'm very interested to see where he ends up going, where his career progresses, and still young, got a lot of tread life left, and the biggest key here is he's not taking a lot of damage. So that is very impressive. You talk about career longevity, but then you also think about matchmaking, and there are folks out there who want to see knockouts. They want to see blood, and Arnold Allen is typically not one of those fighters. He will do what it takes to come out with a victory. And if you're wagering on the fights, Arnold Allen is typically a smart play, but you got to look at the opponent, got to look at the numbers and see if it makes sense. Interested to see where he ends up. He's got a bright future, though. Now, let's discuss the main event. We had Kevin Holland coming in here on relatively short notice, taking on Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori, what can you say about Marvin Vettori? He's more than a blockhead. This is a guy who brings the fight to his opponents. He has a gas tank to go 5 rounds. He might not have knockout power, but he can go the distance and he can land volume early. He's a bulldog, man. He will spend time in top position on many of his opponents. When he burst onto the scene, was taken out a black belt and very impressive King's MMA with Master Rafa Cordero. I've met Rafa Cordero numerous times. Great guy. And King's MMA continues to be on the map, doing great things out there. Kevin Holland, on the other hand, I got to hand it to him. He had multiple opportunities to find a way out of that fight last night. He was asked between rounds if he could see. He was put in multiple submission attempts where he would not submit, and he went the distance. Huge frame, but really it's tough to develop great takedown defense when you're 170 pounds and or 183 pounds and you're 6'4". That lower center of gravity is not going to happen for him. And I know John Jones is out there with a with a wide frame and he's pretty tall, light heavyweight. But Kevin Holland, he is best suited at welterweight. Really, he's doing himself a disservice against fighting guys who are 20 plus pounds heavier than him on fight night. When they enter the cage, I can almost guarantee you that Marvin Vettori was at least 20 pounds heavier than him. And it showed. It really did. I got to hand it to Holland, though. He came in with a if that Kevin Holland showed up against Derek Brunson, he wins that fight. He would have. I had no play on that fight. And Holland came out sharp for a round and a half, and then the wheels fell off. And we knew Vettori was going to be there for 5 rounds, and he was just too strong, too big, and also has a great corner, too, and he listens to his corner. So very happy for Marvin Vettori. I think he is deserving of a title shot. He should get a rematch against Adesanya. And I don't want him to fight Brunson. That fight doesn't make sense. I don't see that making sense. Does that make sense to you? A Brunson Vettori fight? Not me. I don't see that fight making any sense. So we have Marvin Vettori, who set the record for takedowns in a middleweight scrap. And I'm interested to see where Vettori goes from here. He's got the sky's the limit for him, man. Never been finished. Tough as nails. That Adesanya fight, that was a split decision. I know folks are not thrilled with it being called a split decision, but he brought that fight to Adesanya. Both fighters have developed since then. I'd love to see that rematch. Very interesting. So let's go through some of the high DraftKings scores of the evening. We had Julian Marquez with 105 DraftKings points. Very impressive. We had Marvin Vettori with 156 DraftKings points. You look at Top Control. You look at this new DraftKings scoring. It is vital nowadays to scout out fighters who are going to land significant with takedowns and also accrue significant ground control. That is going to be important here. You also, that quick knockout bonus gives you some additional points, so keep an eye out for that. Mackenzie Dern with 110 points. Looks solid out there. Gamra, 107 points. And then you look at the salary, the salary relief that you had with Dan. Heavyweights will be heavyweights. 6,800 buckaroos. And you have Dan who ends up putting up 105 points. And then Jack Shore came in with 93 points at 8,700. Solid number, bet value. And looking forward to next weekend's card. We've got UFC Vegas 24 coming up. Should be a fantastic card. And then we also have a Bellator card, folks, where we have champion taking on Phil Davis for all the marbles. Should be an excellent matchup. Oh, we have Marcus chimed in. Vettori should fight Costa or Cannonier next. If Vettori fights Israel again, I wonder if you would have any success trying to take down Israel, who has better takedown defense than Holland. Yes, that should be fascinating. I think when they're fresh, Adesanya, his takedown defense should hold up early. And you have to wonder, is Vettori going to get tuned up on the feet again? I think that I'd like to see Sean Shelby and Mr. Maynard pull that off and get that fight booked, my friends. Let's get that fight booked. So next weekend, we have UFC Vegas 24. We also have Bellator, I believe 257. And the arrow's pointed up, my friends. We've got many cards ahead in 2021. Let's go get after it. Go get what's yours, my friends. Cheers on this Sunday evening to y'all. Catch up with you soon. Thank you for tuning in.